Welcome into First and Goal. We've got a lot to talk about. It's been a long time since we've last put up an episode. It's been crazy. I've been sick. We got Mikey here for filling in for Connor today while he travels back out west. Safe travels, buddy. Let's get right into things. We're going to start it off with First and Goal. The Chiefs might be broken. So the Kansas City Chiefs right now are 4-5, I believe. 4-5 or 5-4. I think it's 4-5, but I'm not exactly positive on that. I have every stat on the Chiefs except their record. They're 4-5, and they haven't looked good. They just beat the Packers 13-7. Packers didn't
They're
have
5-4.
5-4. So they just beat the Packers. The Packers didn't have Aaron Rodgers. They had Jordan Love at quarterback. Put up only 13 points against them. Mikey, some stats for you before you give what you want to say. The Chiefs' wins this year have come against the Browns week 1 in a comeback. They were down in that game late. The Eagles, the Washington football team, the New York Giants, and the Aaron Rodgers Packers, in which, like I said, they scored 13 points. Their losses this year have come against the Ravens, the Chargers, the Bills by 18, and the Titans by 24. What do you make of the Chiefs so far?
I'm gonna need everybody to pump the brakes on the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, I get that the expectations were set very, very high for them coming into the year. Oh, let's talk about 17-0. Oh, can they do it? Or is it 18-0 now? I think it's 17-0. 18-0? I don't know.
17-0.
17. Okay.
18 weeks with a bye week.
There we go. So there's a lot of talk, and then jumps right into panic. They start losing games. What's wrong with Mahomes? People need to just settle down. This is like the New England Patriots effect. Same thing every year with the Patriots. Everybody, they're broken. It's all going down. No, calm down. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, they'll figure it out. The main issue, though, I mean, their offense isn't clicking. It's not the same. It's not a lack of weapons unlike some other teams. Like I see, Odell Beckham Jr. If we sign Odell, like that's not your issue. Like you don't need Odell to make your team better. This is a problem. I don't know. Eric Bieniemy has to figure something out. You have to help that offensive line any way you can. Run the football more. Like give Mahomes a little bit of help. He's still scrambling around. Like, you got to do something to help out that offensive line. And then defense. This defense, terrible. They are awful.
Daniel Sorensen is good for getting toasted at least twice a game.
It's terrible to watch. It's absolutely terrible. The defense needs to figure it out. I think they will in time. If you remember a couple of years back, the Chiefs' defense was lackluster, and then they turned it on for the playoffs. The old saying is like, in November, that's when real football starts. When we get around Thanksgiving, that's when the real football starts. Maybe the Chiefs just know that they can flip the switch at any given point in time. Flip the switch, make a run to the playoffs, be fine. They just turn up and play against their opponents. That's what I think. I don't think that there's that much of a reason to panic. The division's better. I don't trust the Raiders down the stretch with an interim head coach. The Broncos aren't that great. And the Chargers are the Chargers. They'll lose games because the wind blows the wrong way. That's how they always have, and that's how they always will be.
You have the exact opposite take on them that I do. You're pretty much saying pump the brakes. I'm saying that there's reason to worry. Look, they still find themselves at 5-4. They're one game off a division lead, so it's not the end of the world for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? But the issue that is happening is, one, Patrick Mahomes has not played exceptional. He has 20 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 65% completion percentage, 281.6 yards per game. Those look like decent stats, but as far as how we know Patrick Mahomes, that's pretty far off his pace. The offense has kind of looked clunky, and I think that it's not always been roses for them trying to score. We saw this weekend against the Packers that they scored 13 points against the Packers. They only won by 6, and the Packers didn't have Aaron Rodgers. What if the Packers had Aaron Rodgers in that game? They lose.
They would have gotten blown out.
Exactly. And we'd be talking about a team that's 4-5 and now has lost to pretty much every playoff team they've faced. That's the issue that I have with the Chiefs so far, and why I think that there's definitely reason to panic. Is that outside of the Browns and the Packers without Aaron, so take the Packers out of it. They didn't have their starting quarterback. They didn't have one of the best quarterbacks of this generation. So take them out, because the Packers without Aaron Rodgers are not a playoff team. The only playoff caliber team they've beat is the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns in that game kind of bullied them until the end. Mahomes turned on some magic and got them the win. And the Browns had a chance to come back and win that game at the end, and Baker throws the pick and game over, right? Since that week, every playoff team they've faced, they've lost to. The Ravens, Chargers, Bills, Titans, you could say are maybe the 4 best teams in that division, in that conference. And you lost to every single one of them, including 2 by 2 scores or more.
To be fair, the Ravens game, they should have won until Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled.
But the thing is, that sort of stuff happens. You still lost, and you've lost to most of the playoff teams you faced. The Chiefs are super undisciplined, and it's really weird to see, because usually undisciplined means like a poorly coached team, and I don't think the Chiefs are a poorly coached team, right? They got Andy Reid. Andy Reid's a good coach, but they shoot themselves in the foot all the time, and that's why I question what's going on with them. Right now, they have 4 games this year with 3 or more turnovers, and only 3 games this year of 1 or less. So they have 1 with 1 turnover and then 2 with none. So they have more games turning over the ball 3 times or more than they do turning over the ball 1 time or less. And they're the sixth most penalized team in the league. They have 62 penalties. I think the leading team has 65, so they're only off pace by 3. I don't know what it is, because like I said, I think they're well coached. I don't know if it's because they're kind of resting on their laurels. You said something about them knowing that they can flip the switch. I don't know if that's playing into it, like they know they're good and they kind of got too confident with it, so they're like, oh, we got Patrick Mahomes back under center, we got Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. They've been able to run the ball really well this year, so I think they might be thinking, oh, we can flip the switch at any time. But what happens when it gets later in the season and you try to flip the switch and nothing happens? We've seen that before.
I think the main thing is, at the end of the day, there's not a quarterback in the AFC that I would want the ball in his hands late in games more than Patrick Mahomes. There's not a single one.
No, because of what he can do for you and on track record. But this year, he has not been that guy.
I trust him to come up in the clutch. I think they just have to stop turning over the football. Of course, it's easier said than done. I think Mahomes is a good enough player. He'll figure it out. Andy Reid's a good enough coach. He'll figure it out. The one thing I did want to bring up as somewhat of a little segue, I mentioned him earlier, Eric Bieniemy. This guy was like, oh, he's the next best thing. He's the next offensive genius. And then they're like, oh, how is he not getting a job? How is he not getting college offers or head coaching offers? Not even getting interviews. What are you doing? Can we take some intermediate routes and some shorter routes? Mahomes is forcing it down the field. Sometimes I watch them and he's just going for the deep ball every 5 seconds to get it to Tyreek Hill. You gotta adapt here. You gotta get some do some screen passes.
See, but I think the way the Chiefs offense has operated for the past 3 years under Patrick Mahomes is it's a big play offense, right? They can do the other stuff. They can throw intermediate. They can throw short. That's Travis Kelce's range. Tyreek Hill kind of works in there, but they're a big play offense. They need the big play. They can kind of death by 1,000 cuts if they wanted to, but they go for the big play. They go for the deep shot.
But I think that's what you have to do when your defense is this lackluster. You kind of have to take care of the ball to time of possession.
And I don't really think that's all on Eric Bieniemy. I'm not ridding him of blame, because honestly, the way they've played this year, everybody deserves blame, from Andy Reid to Eric Bieniemy to Patrick Mahomes to everyone. But I don't think it's on Eric. They run some screens for Mecole Hardman, right? And they've actually run the ball, like I said, really well. I think they're top 10 in rush yards, and you would never expect that from the Kansas City Chiefs, air it out offense. So they're
Yeah.
good at that. I think it's just a matter of they shoot themselves in the foot. They have the highest percentage of offensive drives ending in a turnover, which is 20%. 20% of their offensive drives end in a turnover, not a punt, not a touchdown, not a field goal, not a missed field goal, a turnover. They have 19 turnovers this season, 10 interceptions, 9 fumbles. I think that 20% also accounts for turnovers on down, but I'm not positive. But we know about their defensive issues, right? They don't have a good defense at all by any means. But the offense being clunky and undisciplined means that the defense spends more time on the field in close games waiting to be exposed. That's what's happened, right? We saw it in the Ravens game where the Chiefs kind of let him hang around and Lamar did his thing and he came back and beat him. And we saw it in the Chargers game where they let the Chargers hang around and they did that play at the end and beat them. That's happened multiple times. And so if you're an offense and you just can't, turnovers equal short fields, right? Mm-hmm. So it makes it that much easier for the opposing offense, and you don't need to make it any easier for them because you and me could line up and score points on the Chiefs defense. Like they're that bad, So I think here's the thing. I think they'll make the playoffs. They can still score points even though they turn over the ball a ton. But I wouldn't be surprised by a wild card exit. I would not be surprised. And potentially an embarrassing loss. It could get bad. Because right now, the Ravens, Chargers, Bills, and Titans are all much better teams than them. I truly believe. Titans are a little sketchy without Derrick Henry, but I still think overall the team is better. Ravens, Chargers, Bills, I don't think it's in question that they're better teams than the Chiefs right now. The Raiders are a more disciplined team, minus their arrests off the field. And the Bengals I think are a more well-rounded team. The Bengals are 5-4 right now and find themselves out of the playoff picture. That's weird. Because 2 weeks ago we anointed the Bengals as they're for real. But I think they'll make the playoffs, and I'll get to why later on in the show when we get to another segment. But I wouldn't be surprised with a wild card exit. This happens sometimes in dynasties. The happened to the Patriots, right? Mm-hmm. Where you get some disappointing exits. I mean, the Patriots lost to the Jets twice in a row. Sometimes that stuff happens and there's bumps in the road, and they'll figure it out in the offseason. But I think this season is a wash for Kansas City. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. Definitely not a Super Bowl team. That's for sure.
I disagree. Listen, looking at their schedule, looking at who they got coming up, I mean, they're 0-1 in the division right now, so they have 5 divisional games left. That's kind of a recipe to go make your own destiny. Like you get to choose. Like you can go and win all these divisional games. You're going to win the division. I trust them in big spots.
Aren't they though? Are they going to win the division?
I think they still.
Chargers are a better team than the Chiefs right now. Raiders might be a better team than the Chiefs right now.
I know. No.
Broncos aren't. Broncos are kind of fraudulent, but
they play the Raiders this week, Sunday Night Football. Then they play the Cowboys the next week. Then they have their bye week. Their bye week is going to be a big time for them to get things right, get healthy, get things right. It's coming week 12. That's mid-November, and you got to flip a switch right then and there. We'll know. Coming straight out of the bye, they play Denver. Wouldn't be surprised if they go and hang 50 on Denver. And then they play the Raiders again, the Chargers, the Steelers, and the Bengals, and then the Broncos again. I could see them winning all of those games. I could see them running the table, going on, winning this thing, getting their confidence back, getting their mojo back. Mahomes cuts back on the turnovers, and Kansas City is back again as a dominant team in the NFL.
See, but the thing is, it's not a matter. The reason why I doubt that is because it's not a matter of like, if you have a lack of talent, you have a lack of talent, right? And there's nothing you can do in season to change that. One player isn't going to change that. Yeah. If you have injuries, those injuries heal and you come back and you're a better team, hopefully, right? But if you have talent and you're disappointing, I feel like it's harder to bounce back from that, especially the way the Chiefs have done it, because the Chiefs have done it through mental stuff, penalties, turnovers, that sort of thing. And it's really tough when the ball starts rolling in that direction, like when the hypothetical snowball rolls down the hill, that stuff just kind of compiles on itself and compiles on itself and compiles on itself. And it's tough to stop that momentum. Like, I mean, there's certain things that'll have, like Patrick Mahomes has thrown some interceptions that have gone off receivers' hands. So that, that sort of thing won't happen all the time. You'll get some bounces your way, but the penalties are a big deal. Like, how do you become a more disciplined team? It's not like the coach just walks up and says, "Hey guys, stop committing penalties." Like,
I think the penalties come from an issue of, hey, like, we're pressing, like, like, I assume that they're happening on the defensive side of the ball. I think
that's offensive penalties.
Oh, really?
That might be offensive penalties. Yeah. Let me double check on that, but I'm almost positive that that's for offensive penalties.
I would assume defensive, and I would say that's just them trying to be ultra aggressive, trying to make up for what they, like, their skill level. So they try and get physical with teams, which isn't really who they are. They're a straight up finesse team. But I mean, Chris Jones also hasn't been healthy for them, and that's like, if you can get interior pressure on the line, that'll help out that secondary that's been pretty pedestrian.
Keep talking while I look this up. I'm gonna figure out if this is offensive penalties or not.
Yeah, I think it's also, isn't Steve Spagnuolo their still defensive coordinator? He's pretty much a blitz guy too. So, like, if they can generate pressure and help out that secondary, I think they'll be fine. And then, like you said, just cut back on the turnovers. Mahomes will cut back on the interceptions. I think they're too good of a team. They're too good of a team. There's too much at stake for them to continue this trend. I think the bye week will help them in 2 weeks, and I think they can survive until then.
That is offensive penalties. So,
it is?
Yeah, so the two leading are the Panthers and the Texans, each at 65 apiece. Then the Browns, then the Cowboys, then the Eagles and the Chiefs. So I guess the good precedent for them is that in that top 6, there's 2 potential playoff teams outside of them in there, But I don't think, I mean, the Cowboys have been good outside of this past week, but I don't think anyone's saying the Browns are lighting it up, outside of this past week.
You would think that they have a veteran offensive line. You would think that they'd be able to, because I know I didn't they replace all their linemen to start the year. Like, you would think that they'd be used to Mahomes' cadence by now. Like, we're in week 10.
But that can be holding calls. That can be false starts on receivers. That offensive PI, that sort of thing.
That rarely gets called though.
So
rarely.
I don't know. I don't know if the Chiefs will be able to turn it around, but you seem pretty gung ho on it. It's tough to bet against them, right? Because they have talent and everything, but they have a lot of talent, and we've seen them before, and you find it really difficult to go against a team that's made 3 straight AFC Championship games and 2 straight Super Bowls. But we'll see where it goes from here. Let's move on.
Get Jackson Mahomes out of the stadium, and they'll start winning games.
All right. Let's move on. We got 2nd and goal. Mikey, who's the team to beat in the AFC and NFC conferences?
All right.
Go AFC first. We'll talk AFC first.
AFC first? All right. Right now, right this second, it's got to be the Tennessee Titans. They've beaten the Bills. They've beaten the Rams. And they beat the Rams without Derrick Henry, and they dominated that game. I forget what the guy's name is, but he had like 3 sacks in the first quarter. They got constant pressure on Matthew Stafford, and they went on the road and dominated that game. Like, that was impressive without their best player. It would have been easy to, turnover, belly up, like, whatever. Derrick Henry's gone. Like, there goes our offense. No, they just came out with a vengeance. They came out with a fire. It really impressed me. I haven't been buying the Titans at all. They're not in a good division. They have the Jags and the Texans in there. The Colts are good one day if Carson Wentz decides to not just hand the ball to the other team. And then the next day, he's doing exactly that. He's a turnover machine. But right now, the Titans are the team to beat. I don't see that holding up. I don't trust Ryan Tannehill down the stretch. I just never been a Tannehill guy. But yeah, I would say the Titans for the AFC.
So here's the thing. like the Titans, their loss to the Jets concerned me, but they've kind of bounced back from that, and they've beaten some good teams, right?
Everybody's had a fluke.
Right.
Everybody's had one fluke.
But the Titans without Derrick Henry are really hard to get behind, and I know that they dominated this past week, but I don't think that's going to be the rule going forward. With him, they're in the conversation, and I think they're top of that conversation if they have Derrick Henry, because he's just proven this year he's a man amongst boys. But Tannehill is still limited, and I really question if he can make the big throws in playoff games, right? The Ravens are good, but they're kind of a little too Lamar centric, and there's serious questions about Lamar in the playoffs. Like as much as I back Lamar, the questions about his performances in the playoffs are real. He's been unreal carrying the team. You know, he's pretty much their only form of rush game. He's been almost single-handedly winning them games. But can he sustain it? It's a real question, especially going into the winter months. Which, by the way, something for you, a little stat that I saw. Lamar Jackson was 0-6 in games of 10-plus point deficits from 2018 to 2020, because you're a number one Lamar hater.
I know he's been good this year.
He has 3 wins of such sort this year of 10-plus point deficits and 4 comeback wins in total, including one this past week against the Vikings, in which he was down by 2 scores and came back and won. But I really have questions about the Ravens' sustainability on offense, and Lamar. The questions about him in the playoffs are real, so I find it really difficult to back them. I think the Bills and the Browns might be the best bets. I know that the Bills played bad this week. I mean, the loss to the Jaguars is tough, but like you said, every team has a fluke. Every team has a drop in their play, but they're a Josh Allen quarterback sneak away from beating the Tennessee Titans, who you just said are the team to beat, and they had Derrick Henry at the time. I think that they're really well-rounded, and despite the fact that they scored 6 points this week, they should be able to generate points going forward. I don't think that Josh Allen is going to be held to under 10 points many more times this season. And their defense is pretty good. Their defense is actually a pretty good unit. The Browns, the only question mark is Baker, because, I mean, they have a good defensive line. Myles Garrett is electric. Kind of an addition by subtraction with getting rid of Odell. And their running game is something that translates to playoffs, I think. So being able to hold the ball, their secondary is not great, but it's okay. The biggest question mark is Baker able to make those throws in crunch time? And whether you believe in him or not is probably how you determine whether the Browns are real or not. And I know it's weird to add them because right now they're out of the playoff picture, but they're 5-4. So I'm not too worried about the Browns. I think they'll be another team that kind of makes playoffs in the end. So yeah, I think the Bills and the Browns are probably the best bets in the AFC. Who do you like in the NFC?
For me, the best team in the NFC is the Green Bay Packers. If the Packers have Aaron Rodgers in that game yesterday, they win. They might roll Kansas City in that game. Jordan Love was not good by any means whatsoever. But if you put in Aaron Rodgers in that offense, they're at least putting up 31, in my opinion. And I know they had like a really clunky game, special teams wise. The Packers kind of do that like once a year, twice a year. Like Mason Crosby has a game once a year where he like misses like 5 times. And it's like, oh God, what are we going to do about Mason Crosby? Then he comes back the next day, he throws a great winner or whatever. One of them wasn't even really his fault. It was like a bad hold. He didn't spin it, so the laces were out. They were facing like left. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think they'll figure that out. Their one loss this year, besides this last game with Jordan Love, was against the Saints. That was week 1. In the game in Jacksonville, that was really weird, coming off like all the offseason drama and everything. I don't think it was going to be that much of an issue. They still have their bye week. They're actually second in fewest penalties, so they're a really disciplined team. That'll bode well for them down the stretch. Dillon, what's his?
AJ Dillon.
AJ Dillon. And Aaron Jones, really good 1-2 punch. Really good 1-2 punch. They don't lose a lot, like with either of them back there. Also, You still got Devontae Adams. He's literally unstoppable. Literally unstoppable. Like you can't do anything about it. Randall Cobb showed up big in a couple games, couple big moments. He's come to life. And then their offensive line is really, really good. They have a lot of depth. And then they have perhaps maybe one of the best left tackles in the game, Bakhtiari. He's coming back. So that's just going to really solidify that even more. So, yeah, for me, Green Bay, I don't think it's particularly close. I think they're the best team in the whole NFL.
Yeah, I don't think they are, because I think they're good, right? The Packers are really good. But I question their defense at times. I don't know how they'll fare in the playoffs against good offenses. I know that they've been much improved this year, but it's just so tough to trust them. I don't know. I just find a really hard time trusting them. And I think they have limited playmakers past Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. Like Randall Cobb comes up big in moments, sure. AJ Dillon's a nice backup. Yeah, he performs. He's pretty good back there. But I mean, let's say in a playoff situation, you have your number one corner. Let's just say it's Jalen Ramsey against Devontae Adams. And so you can't throw there, right? Unless you can throw there, but it's a 50-50 proposition. You're now throwing to Alan Lazard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Who they haven't had. He's a burner. He can go over the top on you. They've kind of been lacking that.
Burner, but with
might get
the case of the
OBJ.
dropsies. If they get OBJ, I will change my position. They get Odell Beckham, I would put them at the top. So I don't know. Packers have some question marks. I think that the Cardinals are good, but Kyler's kind of a question mark with his health. I mean, it has to be mentioned at this point, Kyler's been in the NFL for 3 seasons, and last year he was injured for the last 8 weeks, and he's injured now. So his durability has to start coming into question. I mean, people kept saying Lamar's going to get injured playing the way he plays. Lamar hasn't had a significant injury yet. Kyler Murray, everybody lauds, but this is now 2 seasons in a row where he's gotten injured, what seems like in the middle of the season. So I don't know if it's wear and tear on his body. And I also kind of have trouble trusting a young quarterback coach in the playoffs in their first time. Like, I think they're good, but I think that inexperience plays a role.
I can't get behind Cliff Kingsbury yet.
I can't. I will give him this.
Because they won without him. They won without him.
He's a good offensive coordinator. I think Cliff is probably one of the better offensive play callers in the league. His head coaching
Game
ability, I still
management.
bring into question. Yeah, exactly.
And clock management.
The Cowboys are really good, and I've liked that, but I know not to trust them. I've been a fan long enough to know that anytime the Cowboys are doing something good, it's too good to be true. Their defense also might not be as good as we originally thought. Turns out Trayvon Diggs is not one of the best corners in the NFL.
Turns
he's
out he's
good.
Not the second version of prime time.
Yeah, he's good. Don't get me wrong, but there's still a gap between, let's say, Jalen Ramsey and him, and it's a pretty freaking large gap.
I think it's actually pretty good for the Cowboys. Kind of get humbled. I mean, they were talked about as the best team in the NFL. Diggs is talked about like, oh, can he break the record? Like, and you could tell that he was trying to jump the routes. He was going instead of making the right play, he was trying to get the interception.
Here's the thing.
Now it's like, oh, hey, let's come to realization.
Here's the thing with a corner like Trayvon Diggs is I don't think he's bad. I think he's good, and I think he really has potential. This is only his second season, but he is a gambler. He tries to jump routes. He tries to get picks. He wants the ball in his hands, right? And sometimes when you're a gambling cornerback, and he's going to have to learn this and try to know when to pick his spots to gamble on it. When you're a gambling cornerback, you get burned sometimes, right? Because you gamble and it doesn't pay off, and now they're over the top and they're by you.
Is DeMarcus Lawrence coming back this season?
I think so. He should be. He was supposed to be back this past week, but I don't think they got him back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But
hopefully he turns out to be somewhat worth the money.
I think he's good. And I think that Trayvon Diggs is good and he's got potential and he's going to, I mean, as he stays in the league, he's going to learn and mature and realize there's certain times where you don't take that risk, you know?
Mhm.
But like I said, I've been a fan of the Cowboys long enough to know anything that is going well will turn to the opposite way at some point. It just always happens. I said it this week. I said, you were there. I said, this is the kind of game that the Cowboys lose against a
That's
team that
true.
they're supposed to beat, they're looking really good. This is a game where the Cowboys let you down. And I bet on them anyways, and I'm an idiot for that. But
Oh yeah, I did too. Yeah.
um I think the Bucks are the safest bet. It's boring. I know. It's Tom Brady. I know. They're the safest bet. They're the best team in the NFC. Their offense. I mean, are you going to bet against Brady in the playoffs? I'm not.
If they're
Those
going against New Orleans, can't beat Trevor Simeon.
those those offensive weapons. What happened last time they were in the playoffs against New Orleans?
Uh, that was Jared Cook's fault. The game was in the bag, and then he decided to gift them the ball.
They've got lots of playmakers. Antonio Brown. Nobody's talking about it. Antonio Brown is having a resurgent year. Antonio Brown is the best receiver on that team this year. He has been.
They've been doing it without Gronk too.
Yeah. So those playmakers, I question their ability to run the ball, but I did that last year too, and Leonard Fournette did perfectly fine in the playoffs. So, and their defense is solid. I mean, I know it's boring. It is, but the Bucks
They
are the
commit
best
too many
team.
penalties for me. I feel like every 5 seconds I'm seeing a flag against them. They kind of play a little bit reckless, a little bit undisciplined. They got to tighten that up before.
But we know how Brady works. Like, offense isn't going to commit penalties in the playoffs. It's not. Tom Brady won't allow for it. And
I
said,
I was thinking it, and like I feel like the Rams have a couple flaws that they have to work through, in order to be the best team. And like I just don't see, like, if you got a halfway decent pass rush, and you can get a little bit of pressure on Brady at this point, because like they have a lot of like over the top, like Mike Evans can run in a straight line. That's about it. Like
Mike Evans,
just, like,
okay. Connor and I, and Connor will like this that you just brought this up, but Connor and I both agree Mike Evans is the most overrated receiver in the NFL. And
he's
it's
a
not
great red zone. He's great in the red zone. That's it.
He's tall and he's strong and he wins 50-50 balls, but he is not a good route runner. He's got okay hands.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a burner. He wins 50-50 balls. That's what he does.
Godwin shrinks too. Godwin shrinks, man. Like sometimes it's like, oh, Chris Godwin, like look at, he's doing everything, and then other games like, where is he? Is he even on the field? So like AB's their best bet,
but AB and Gronk are money. They're so money. And I think Godwin's a great guy to have. If Godwin's your third option, that's a pretty good option.
Has Gronk ever been able to stay healthy?
He has for the playoffs. You get Gronk to the playoffs, he will play.
I don't know.
I mean, imagine. Okay, put the image in your head, right? Bucks Packers, NFC Championship game, right? Aaron Rodgers goes downfield, scores a touchdown. 2.5 minutes left, let's say, puts them up. Let's call it, I don't know, 31-24.
Well, this is unfair because Brady's always gonna get, unless he's against the Saints, he's always gonna do well in the 2-minute drill.
Let's call it 31-28. They pan over the sideline. They see Brady in his killer position, looking like he just murdered an entire school of children. Are you betting against that? Are you betting?
Yes, because Aaron Rodgers will get the ball back and throw a Hail Mary and win the game.
I'm not betting against that. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying I would bet against them, but they're not the best team in the NFL right now. You can't lose to Trevor Simeon. Can't lose to Trevor Simeon.
Okay, but your best team, the Titans, lost to the Jets. The Packers lost
with Mike White. No, that was without Mike White.
The Packers lost to the Saints.
Yeah, but the Saints are elite, so they're playing.
As of right now, I think we've learned that week 1 and week 9 are kind of just washes, right? Because like
Yeah.
the Bills lose to the Steelers. From there, the Bills look like 1,000 times better of a team. The Packers lose to the Saints. From there, the Packers become one of the best teams in the league. The Saints are kind of holding on for dear life here. Week 9, all sorts of stuff, and now we're here. All right, let's move on.
The Bucks do have a cupcake schedule. They have the Panthers twice, the Jets, the Falcons, the Washington football team, and the Giants. Oof. They might run the table. You might be right. But right now it's Green Bay.
I disagree. But let's move on.